Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a major breaking news story, and it has some absolutely massive implications for global security. A high-value terror commander was just extradited and brought right here to U.S. soil to face some very severe federal charges. But, as you'll see, this isn't just a story about one man. It's actually a super revealing look into a rapidly evolving strategy of hybrid warfare, and it's playing out all over the globe right now.
I want you to think about this number for a second. 18. In the span of just 3 short months, one individual allegedly directed 18 separate terrorist attacks across Europe. It's honestly staggering when you think about the coordination and the sheer violence happening in such a compressed time frame. This wasn't just some random string of events either. It was a highly organized, allegedly Iranian-backed campaign of terror, and it was aimed squarely at the West. So, who is at the center of all this? We're looking at Mohammed Bakr Saad Dawood al-Saadi. He's a 32-year-old Iraqi national who was recently arrested in Turkey and then transferred directly into U.S. custody. He just appeared in a Manhattan federal court, and get this, reportedly smiling throughout his initial appearance to face 6 major terrorism-related charges. Now, his defense attorney is calling him a political prisoner, but the U.S. Department of Justice paints a totally different picture. They are describing him as a high-value target who is directly responsible for mass global terrorism. To really understand how al-Saadi allegedly pulled this off, we have to kind of parse out the whole network behind him. According to the federal complaint, he is a commander for Kataib Hezbollah. That's an Iraqi paramilitary group, and the U.S. has designated them as a foreign terrorist organization. But here's the thing, Kataib Hezbollah doesn't just act on its own. They are a heavily funded proxy group closely aligned with the IRGC, that's Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The IRGC basically functions as Iran's military and counterintelligence agency, operating right under the supreme leader. And they actively use proxy groups, just like Kataib Hezbollah, to project their lethal power abroad.
Now, you might be wondering, why now? What's the motivation here? Well, the DOJ complaint points directly to one thing: revenge. Al-Saadi allegedly worked very closely with Qasem Soleimani, the infamous IRGC commander, and also Abu Mahdi al-Mohandes, the leader of Kataib Hezbollah. Both of those leaders were killed in a U.S. airstrike back in 2020. Following their deaths, al-Saadi posted an image on social media. It showed their faces projected onto a rubbled U.S. Capitol building, and he included this chilling declaration: "Our revenge for the martyred leaders is ongoing." That is the ideological fuel driving this entire alleged campaign.
That motivation rapidly translated into action. Let's look at the timeline. On March 9th, al-Saadi allegedly uses a Snapchat account called Shadow Soldiers to put out a call to action trying to activate terror cells globally. Just days later, boom, a Bank of New York Mellon building in Amsterdam is bombed, causing some serious damage. By April, the violence really escalates. We see an arson attack on a synagogue in North Macedonia, and then the severe stabbing of 2 Jewish men in London. That last event was so horrific, the UK Prime Minister actually described it as a crisis of anti-Semitism. In all these attacks, they were claimed by a front group called Harakat Ashab al-Yaman al-Islamiyah.
But the spree didn't just stop in Europe. The geographical scope of this campaign is literally massive. The network also claimed responsibility for 2 more attacks over in Canada. In Paris, police managed to thwart a bomb plot against a Bank of America office. They found a homemade explosive device there that was capable of producing a massive fireball. So what are we really seeing here? It's the use of petty underworld criminals to execute a wide-reaching, violent campaign against American and Jewish interests, all on behalf of an international power. As all of these global geopolitical conflicts were escalating, the Department of Homeland Security actually issued a really stark bulletin. They explicitly warned us that the ongoing conflict was increasing the likelihood of violent extremists mobilizing right here within the U.S. homeland. And while, as the investigation into al-Saadi showed, that threat was allegedly very, very real.
Because al-Saadi wasn't just looking at Europe or Canada. According to the Justice Department, he was allegedly communicating with someone he believed to be a willing operative here in the U.S. But plot twist, that person was actually an undercover law enforcement officer. Al-Saadi sent this undercover agent photos and maps outlining very specific targets. We're talking a prominent Jewish synagogue in New York, plus additional Jewish institutions out in Los Angeles, California, and Scottsdale, Arizona. He was allegedly coordinating strikes directly on American soil. And what makes this truly alarming is how incredibly close it came to actually happening. During phone conversations with the undercover agent, al-Sadia allegedly went back and forth, debating whether they should use an improvised explosive device or if they should just set the place on fire when it came to that New York synagogue. And to seal the deal, he allegedly handed over a $3,000 down payment to the agent to carry out the attack. Fortunately, law enforcement disrupted the whole plot before any violence could happen, but the intent and the funding were absolutely in place.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second. The arrest of al-Saadi is a massive breakthrough, for sure, but it really represents just one symptom of a much larger, overarching geopolitical strategy. According to some deep analysis by the Washington Institute, Iran has spent years developing what counterterrorism officials are calling a homeland option. It's a deliberate capability to conduct or enable terrorist acts inside the U.S. and allied nations as a form of asymmetric warfare.
The Washington Institute breaks this homeland option down into 3 distinct pathways that Iran uses to project its power. And understanding these 3 pathways, Iranian agents, criminal surrogates, and inspired lone offenders, well, it basically reveals exactly how international security is being challenged today.
Let's look at Pathway 1. This is the most traditional route, the use of actual Iranian agents. We're talking directly deployed intelligence officers operating abroad. A prime example of this was Asadullah Asadi. He was an Iranian diplomat convicted in Belgium for organizing a 2018 plot to bomb a dissident rally near Paris. But, there's a huge problem with this pathway. When a foreign nation's actual official intelligence officers get caught planning bombings, it invites severe international blowback. We're talking diplomatic crises and even potential military retaliation.
Because of that massive risk, Iran has increasingly pivoted to Pathway 2, criminal surrogates. Instead of using their own ideological agents, they're essentially outsourcing their warfare to hired criminal networks. It's like a rent-a-gang model. The U.S. Treasury Department has noted Iranian recruitment of the Hells Angels in Canada. Over in Europe, officials have tracked Iran using gangs like the Foxtrot Network in Sweden, plus organized crime groups in Eastern Europe. Doing this completely masks Iran's direct involvement. It gives them plausible deniability, but they still achieve their violent objectives. Remember that thwarted Paris Bank of America plot we discussed a minute ago? Yep, that involved petty criminals recruited straight from the French underworld.
And finally, we have Pathway 3, inspired lone offenders. This is where they use digital recruitment and heavy propaganda to inspire individuals who have absolutely no formal or physical ties to the group. The goal is to get them to carry out less sophisticated but still highly deadly attacks. Honestly, this is often the hardest pathway for law enforcement to detect. When al-Saadi allegedly posted on Snapchat calling for warriors of Islam to become shadow soldiers, he was trying to trigger exactly this kind of decentralized lone wolf violence across the globe.
This whole strategy fundamentally alters the game of counterterrorism. The European Commission put it pretty starkly, saying the Iranian regime's use of criminal networks as terrorist proxies in Europe poses a grave threat to our internal security. And the reason why this matters to you, the big takeaway here, is that the lines between organized crime, digital propaganda, and state-sponsored terrorism, they are completely blurring. The battlefield isn't just overseas anymore. Through these proxies and digital calls to action, the battlefield reaches right into cities like Amsterdam, London, Los Angeles, and New York.
Which leaves us facing a truly critical challenge. Look, the arrest of Mohammed al-Saadi is a major victory for law enforcement, no doubt about it. But the network itself and the strategy, that all remains. As long as adversarial nations can successfully mask their involvement by just hiring local street gangs or inspiring radicalized individuals online, traditional defense strategies are going to struggle to keep up. So the big question is, how can Western nations adapt and actually defend against this decentralized, outsourced brand of global warfare? It's a highly complex puzzle, and it's one that our intelligence agencies are going to be battling for years to come. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.